NTV Business News in association with Username Investment Limited.
Hello there, time now for a look at the day's business news. And tonight, of course, we look at what is prevailing, and that's matters with standard gauge railway project. And today, President Uhuru Kenyatta has this evening officially launched the standard gauge railway with the first cargo train leaving Mombasa for Nairobi. Kenya Railways Managing Director Maize says that it will cost 30% less to transport a container on the new railway than it would on a truck.
Sandwiched between flags, dancing in the winds of excitement, and a delegation exuding the very same conviction, the cargo train riding on the standard gauge railway, towing 56 containers, pierced through the new atmosphere at the port Ritz in Mombasa. At 6:21 p.m., the head of state ceremoniously waved the flag with confetti flying between the waves, and the Chinese driver-steered train let out a horn as it began to roll off. As it did, with regard to today's flag off, the step-by-step journey has been an uphill task to some extent, even to the admission of some of the key stakeholders.
The last time we did such an event, Excellency, to launch such a very key project in the railway sector was exactly 30th of November 1895.
But what was a problem for me was the multiplicity of players and the diversity of their interests, particularly the groups that came into play. And some of them were pulling in directions that were not necessarily helpful for the project. And overcoming that became a challenge.
The court cases, the navigation of the environmental issues, the political issues.
Now, one other challenge which has recently shown its ugly face is that of insecurity, as there was vandalism at Kinango near Mariakani, but the police say they have arrested 4 suspects who were taken to court and are back in police custody to aid with investigations.
For us, we will not deal with those individuals as common criminals. They are not petty vandals. These are economic saboteurs, and we will deal with them as such.
The 40,000 Kenyans who worked day and night to make this a reality. And the foundation that we lay today that will help lead us in to an industrialization chapter as we move to develop special economic zones along this railway line, as we move to establish the Dongokundu SEZ, and all this being made possible by the investments that we have made in rail to reduce the cost of moving goods.
Now, this is a pretty good view of the port from where the train is. This is a very new train. We could still see some polythene on it. Pretty much it's bubble wrap, and it gives us a good idea. Now, going forward, when it comes to these cargo trains, each of them can carry 216 containers, and this is going to cost 50,000 shillings. And this is according to Maize, the managing director of the Kenya Railways Corporation. His argument is this: it's 30% cheaper to transport cargo using the train than it is using trucks, which are the majority of the transport means that is used by the various transporters from the port of Mombasa inland. Now, this, however, will not be enjoyed until the end of 2017 in December, according to Maize, as that is when it will be open to the public. Dan Mwangi, NTV, from the top of a train at Port Ritz in Mombasa.
Dan Mwangi having fun there, and he'll be actually on the maiden train tomorrow with the president right from Mombasa, right here in Nairobi, and we'll be here to receive him. And of course, it is Kenya's largest infrastructure project ever undertaken, set to be launched tomorrow by President Uhuru Kenyatta. Though the 472-kilometer rail network will cost you about 447 billion shillings, I beg your pardon, and the distance there will be 472 kilometers. Let's take a look at those numbers quite closely here, because of course the matter has been about the cost of a train and of course the distance. That's 447 billion shillings. The distance there is 447 72 kilometers, and the project duration has been 4 years, of course, tomorrow being the launch of that period. So just an overall perspective. So looking at the figures, how is the government going to fund this? Well, a closer look at the numbers reveals that, of course, the huge amount came in from the China Exim Bank, where we got 294.3 billion shillings, and of course the government coming in there and contributing 32.7 billion shillings. Now, how will the government come up with that 32.7 billion shillings? What we're meant to understand is that the government will impose a railway levy, which is actually on every container imported to Kenya at 1.5%. That's now bringing the total to 447 billion shillings. Moving over, of course, and looking at some of the other facts and figures of the standard gauge railway project, the speed there, now there are two trains here, where we have the passenger train and the cargo train. So looking at the speed of the passenger train, will be 120 kilometers per hour. Some bit of, primary school math there. So you're looking at a distance of about 472 kilometers, traveling at a speed of 120 kilometers. How long will it take? So of course there you're looking at the time, it's at 4 hours and 30 minutes. And of course there are cargo trains taking 6 to 8 hours. Now, a conversation with the Tanasmana, he says that now the 6 to 8 hours difference will mean that the priority will be particularly for the passenger trains, and of course that's why you have the average there of the the cargo trains there between the 6 to 8 hours, because priority is particularly on the passenger trains. So moving over to the next slide, where we look at some of the other facts and figures, the impact, the economy. Of course, this has been attributed on the 22 to 30 million tons. Now, the current capacity of the Mombasa port is about 22 million. Of course, the target is to make sure it's 30 million by 2030. And of course, the road capacity, the idea is to ease off traffic congestion from the road network to the rail. And of course, currently the road network controls about 95% of container traffic. Now, going to cross over to the rail network, that will take it to about 50% to the rail network. So what will that do to the road networks? Of course, now looking at the carbon emission reduction from the road, of course, through all the fumes released by the trucks, from 80% to 40%. So just a very quick overview on the facts and figures. Of course, we're keeping you updated with the details. The issue has been on the cost of travel from Mombasa to Nairobi. And of course, Dan Mwangi earlier in the live saying that perhaps this is meant for the president to release tomorrow. So when I mentioned about Vision 2030, so increasing capacity from 22 million tons at the Mombasa port to about 30 million tons, how is the Vision 2030 board feeling that this will mean for the organization? So let's take a listen to the chairman, Dr. James Mwangi, on the same.
The GDP for Kenya was almost 5 times higher than the GDP of growth rate of sub-Saharan Africa last year, simply because of the railway, the standard gauge line investment. So you can see that the payback has already started. If you look at export, we have now started seeing export significantly growing. We believe domestic tourism, using the standard gauge line, particularly to transport up-country people, Nairobians, to the port, to the coastal area, to support tourism, we'll start seeing consumption within the domestic market becoming a major driver of the economy. The biggest saving will come from the cost of maintaining the roads that we have significantly been having. And lastly is the cost itself. The cost of transport will come down by at least 40%, both for passengers and for cargo.
Away from matters infrastructure, and the Cereal Millers Associations have denied allegations of an artificial shortage of maize and flour in the country, saying the current crisis is nothing new and has always been there whenever there's drought. Now, the millers say this year's shortage has been more severe because the drought was all over the Eastern African region. Now, they have denied having a killing dealing with the government. That's in the subsidy program that has been rolled out in the country. Andrew Cheng has the details.
The current shortage of maize flour in the country is likely to go on for the next 2 weeks as millers mill the maize coming in and distribute it across the country. At a meeting with the Parliamentary Committee on Agriculture, the Cereal Millers Association said that the initial bags of maize it got from the government was not going to last long.
At that time, Chairman, we made it very clear that that represented for the Cereal Millers Association, Chair, 8 to 10 days of milling. It would run out, and very quickly prices would start to go up again.
Because of the huge demand, we had to actually ration to all our customers so that there would be an even distribution geographically and also across the different value chain customers.
The millers, however, said that there are 7 more ships coming in with maize to Mombasa, and in 2 weeks the distribution will be better.
Can you really be able to give an assurance to Kenyans that indeed there will be adequate stocks out there? Because many wholesalers up country, they had not even had an opportunity of selling the subsidized maize meal.
So the second vessel is here. We expect the third one to arrive in the middle of June. And then after that, there's a regular schedule of vessels.
The millers have, however, had to defend themselves against several accusations, one of hoarding, waiting for prices to go up so that they could eventually make more money.
This whole accusation of maize being held, not true. Nobody had any maize. Of course, people have 5-7 days. But the farmers didn't have it either. The traders didn't.
They also say that there was nothing wrong with the way the first shipment of maize that had come from Laban in South Africa was brought into the country.
The next ship that could get to Durban happened to be in Mauritius at the time. It had dropped off another cargo. It popped into Durban, it got loaded, and it came up to Kenya. That's honestly, I really would say to the chairman and to the committee, the story is no simpler than that. There is no story behind it. Take it from me, sir.
The millers deny that some of their members are making a big profit with the current arrangement where the government is buying maize from particular millers and distributing it equally to all of them.
The people who had bought this consignment, the millers, the Pempe maize millers, the Kitui maize millers, and the other one, did they make any margin? Because at the end of the day, there was a financial commitment. How much money did they pay to Worldbad? And how much money did they dispose to GOK?
If the maize itself locally was at a price of 4,500 and plus, so if we got this at 3,600, isn't it better than the 4,500 and plus? Isn't Kenya better off for what it got? If we did not import and have this duty free, what would have the price reached at?
Of the 7 ships coming in with the maize, the millers say 4 belong to one farm, Wholebad. For longer-term measures to ease the crisis, they say proper planning in the country is needed, as well as improved land management, irrigation, post-harvest management, and even the logistical issues of importation and storage of the imported grain. Andrew Ochieng, NTV.
The Central Bank of Kenya has yet again given out statistics that indicate that the law on interest rates caps effected last year is having an adverse impact on the most productive segment of the economy in terms of job creation. My colleague Alex Mwangi reports.
It was meant to make loans cheaper for the public, but the interest rate cap law, which came into effect in the third quarter of 2016, is affecting the access to credit of small and medium enterprises in ways that had not been anticipated.
Bank lending to micro and small and medium-sized enterprises, that's MSMEs, has fallen 5.7% between August last year and April this year. Even though actually small banks have increased lending to this sector. So if you want to know who has reduced their lending to this sector, of course it is the large banks that have done this.
The team of technocrats at the central bank is not sitting pretty with regard to that statistic for this reason.
This is a concern because this is really where job creation is and will take place. This is really where output, the potential for growth in output is and will take place.
According to the most recent data from the CBK, the number of loan applications from the time the rate cap came into effect to date has risen, but the value of the applications reduced by 18%.
There's been smaller size loans. So people are applying for smaller size loans, which is surprising. Lending to businesses has fallen and relative to corporate. So there's more corporate lending rather than businesses. And now this we are moving away from the medium and small enterprises.
The CBK governor is on record having opposed the idea of a blanket interest rate cap. The National Treasury remains mum on the matter, even as some allege that banks are sabotaging the effectiveness of the law. On the progress of litigation towards the recovery of Imperial Bank, the governor had this to say.
So nothing has changed there. That's all I can say. Nothing has changed. So if you thought that it was just a slam dunk situation, you go in, figure out what it is, slam dunk, move out, then okay, I can imagine it's long. Oh, no. This is akin to, taking care of every vital organ in your body, including, the brain and all those other things. No wonder it's taken this long.
Alex Mwangi, NTV.
Well, so how does that impact on the banks themselves? And today we'll give you a practical example, and that's from National Bank of Kenya, whose profit for the period ended 31st of March has dropped by 82% to 59.5 million shillings. That's on account of a fall in interest income coming on the back of the low capping interest rates. As the CBK governor mentioned, the lender's profits fell sharply from 334.6 million shillings registered in a similar period last year. Well, and that's all we had for you on NTV Business News tonight. My name is Laban Onserio. Stay tuned. We have a lot more lined up for you, of course, including the live coverage of the launch of the standard gauge railway project tomorrow. My name is Laban Onserio.
NTV Business News.